Welcome to Called to Build, the podcast for faith-driven entrepreneurs and kingdom leaders who are ready to build what outlasts them. Hosted by Carl Willis, entrepreneur, pastor, and marketplace missionary. Each episode delivers biblical wisdom, insight, real-world strategy, and bold encouragement to help you lead with purpose, steward with wisdom, and multiply your impact. Because faith and business weren't meant to compete, they were meant to collide. Now, let's step into today's episode.
Let me ask you a dangerous question. What good is it to scale your business if you lose your soul in the process? We live in an age obsessed with growth, followers, funnels, income, influence. We celebrate the hustle and baptize it with Christian lingo. We build strategies faster than we build altars. But slowly, quietly, tragically, the soul drifts. And here's what I've learned. Sometimes success is just sanctified striving. You see, I've scaled the platforms, built the brands, led the church, and grown the companies. But I've also stood in the storm, burned out under the weight, and heard the whisper of God ask me one question that shattered me. Carl, am I the Lord of every kingdom in your heart? Let's be clear, multiplication is a kingdom mandate. Jesus didn't rebuke the servant who multiplied the talents, he commended him. Matthew 25:14-30. We are meant to grow, to build, to expand what we've been entrusted with. But multiplication without submission leads to idolatry. In my early years of business and ministry, I believed I was stewarding God's calling, and I was. But along the way, the metrics became louder than the master. I was building, yes, but not always building with God. Sometimes I was just asking him to bless the blueprints I'd already drawn. That's not stewardship. That's spiritual self-sufficiency. Years ago, in the quiet of a difficult season, I sensed the Lord pressing me to examine every area of my life. Ministry was growing, business was expanding, but my soul felt off, dry, overextended. And then came the question that stopped me in my tracks. Am I the Lord of every kingdom of your heart? Not just the spiritual ones, not just Sunday mornings or morning devotionals, but the spreadsheets, the launch plans, the marketing strategies, the leadership decisions. He was asking me to surrender everything I'd built in his name that I was still controlling in my flesh. It broke me, because the honest answer was, no, not yet. Soul check. Are you scaling in the spirit or in the flesh? Ask yourself these questions. Be brutally honest before the Lord. When was the last time I asked God to veto my vision? Is my growth driven by faith or fear? Do I sacrifice time with God to get ahead? If my influence disappeared tomorrow, would I still feel valuable? Am I building to impress people or to please the Lord? These questions aren't for shame, they're for freedom. There are 3 anchors that keep you from drifting. To scale without soul loss, you need anchors, spiritual, emotional, and practical. 1. Daily presence over daily pressure. Before you check the numbers, check in with the Father. Your soul doesn't thrive off momentum, it thrives off abiding. The vine doesn't stress to bear fruit, it simply stays connected. In Lessons from the Storm, I described the tornado that nearly took our lives in Hoisington, Kansas. That night, we found shelter beneath the stairs, But more than that, we found spiritual refuge in knowing God already knew the outcome. Don't wait for the storm to find your shelter. 2. Accountability isn't optional. You need people who will pray with you, check your blind spots, and ask the hard questions. In Dodge City, I had a circle of brothers who kept me grounded. We weren't competing. We were confessing, contending, and challenging one another to stay faithful. Lone wolf leadership is seductive and deadly. 3. Mission-driven metrics. Scale what God calls you to, but measure what heaven celebrates. Revenue matters, but so does peace in your home, integrity in your contracts, discipleship in your daily rhythms, a heart that's still tender to the Holy Spirit. Here's what the Spirit says to the scalers. If you're weary, if you've been building with your hands and not your heart, if you've been chasing the next level and ignoring the next whisper, then hear this. You were never called to sacrifice your soul on the altar of scale. You were called to multiply without compromising intimacy. Let me say that again. You were never called to sacrifice your soul on the altar of scale. You were called to multiply without compromising intimacy. What if your greatest breakthrough isn't in your funnel, but at His feet? What if your next level of growth comes after your next level of surrender? The Lord is not impressed by your empire, but He's deeply moved by your obedience.
Thanks for tuning in to Called to Build. If this episode challenged or encouraged you, take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another faith-driven leader who's ready to rise. To go deeper, visit carlwillis.com for tools, training, and resources that will help you lead with purpose, steward with wisdom, and build what outlasts you. Remember, you weren't called to compete, you were called to build. Until next time, keep building what matters.